Thank you for joining us today at Silver Sage. I'm Joan Rudder-Ward, your host, and today my guest host is Christine Pence. Christine and I attended Imaging USA, the premier photography convention, which is held annually each year in January. And this year we went to Nashville, Tennessee. Imaging USA is the longest running photographic conference, trade show, and exhibit in the USA, drawing 10,000 working photographers each year. Dating back to 1880, the event is always growing and evolving to help photographers become better artists, grow as entrepreneurs, and be inspired to do and be more. So what were we doing at Imaging USA? We went to interview photographers from various places around the country who started their professional photography career after the age of 50. Though undoubtedly it seems like, and it is a lot of fun, professional photography is not an easy career.
That was one of the interesting things, Joan, that we wanted to look at. Here we had statistics showing that the photography business in general is one of the more difficult ones to get into and to make money at. A lot of people have cameras, and most all of us have telephones, and so the whole notion of having a picture paid for you to make money as a professional, it's just not easy. So it was interesting to us that here we had people who had either started their photography businesses while they were still working, or retired completely and started their photography businesses. So we wanted to know, well, did the statistics have any effect on their decision to go into photography as a second profession?
So we also wanted to find out from them, what challenges do they see starting at this age with photography, and if they felt that they made a wise choice in doing so. So we interviewed 9 photographers, and over a period of the next couple of episodes, we'll be sharing their stories with you.
I'll tell you why I got involved in photography. When I was a little girl, we had the camera that you look down into the box, and I was always fascinated with that. I was fascinated with the images that came out of it. And when I was probably, I don't know, in junior high or so, we went on a fall color tour with my mom and my dad and a couple of friends, my sisters, and I lived up in northern Michigan, so it was just gorgeous up there. And I took along a little camera that, you know, it's just a little click, and it probably had the cube on it as I think about it. And I took a whole lot of pictures from that day, probably 12, but I could remember vividly the colors and how my mom and dad looked when they were standing next to that tree, and how we looked when we were playing in the water and so forth. And when I got the pictures back, they were, oh my gosh, they were beautiful. I remember, yes, this is the way it was. And then I lost those pictures. But I could remember specifically how beautiful that day was. It was absolutely wonderful. I could remember how I felt on that day. And I realized that it's not so much the photo that we take, it's what we remember when we look at that photo. So sometimes we're not even really seeing the image, we're seeing what we remember about the image. And from there, I think that propelled me to take more and more. And then of course I had 3 kids, and children, if you have a face, I want to take a picture of your face, it's so beautiful. And that's how I felt with my kids. And I always had the camera with me, and little by little the cameras got better, but my kids were like, Mom, please put the camera down. And And then finally they were, Mom, where are the pictures? So that's how I started. But for me, it's a passion. And I always figure if there's something that you're doing that you forget to eat and you forget to go to the bathroom, then it's something that you should probably be pursuing. If you have a face, I want a photographic, but I know that's how I've always felt. If faces are what get me, and I think it's because that's what tells the story. Being an actress, I also know the body definitely also tells the story. So how you're using the body and how it reflects on your face is all part of it, and I love to capture that. Particularly, I think, because of my grandchildren. In photographing my grandchildren, I think I'm more cognizant about their young minds, what they're doing, and how it reflects in their face, and the moods that they're going through, and how they show if they're happy or reflective. And I didn't really observe that as much when they were my children. I think I was too busy, and now as a grandma, I think I see it more than I did as a mother. Relate more to my age than anything, because the learning curve for me is pretty steep, because I didn't start learning Lightroom or Photoshop, or the digital camera it's not a point and shoot. You have to really know what you're doing, and I'm working in manual. In fact, I'm getting my CPP this year, and I passed the exam, so technically I know that, but that was tough because an older brain has more in it. I swear that's got to be what it is. And so retaining that information is not always as easy. When you're younger, I think it's easier to learn. But when you're older, you also have life experiences to draw on and prior information that helps. So that's been a challenge, just the learning curve being so steep. But the other challenge is physical, because as you get older, you're just not as limber. Can't move the same way you used to, and there are for instance, what I would love to do is travel photography, and I plan on pursuing that for as long as I can, but carrying equipment around and touring up and down on mountains and so forth, that's hard on a body that's 64 as opposed to 34. So that's probably the biggest challenge. The rest of it is just learning and finding out what I love to do the most. So yes, ma'am, I am photographing weddings. I love to do it. By the end of the day, I am absolutely toast. I am so beat, but I just love it. I really do. I really do. I'm shooting on adrenaline through the whole day, but I just love it. Of my real goal is to have people think that my photography is absolutely phenomenal. They absolutely love it, and they will spend a lot of money on it. I think I couldn't do photography even if I tried. So I'm hoping that I can make some money doing this. I'm a small business owner, and I create art. And the truth is, that's what I've always done. I've always been a small business owner. I've always created art. That art has changed through the years, and now my medium of choice is photography. And even in the photography, which I've only started doing professionally for a few years, the focus of what kind of photography I want to do is changing. And now, as I'm seeing more and more of the fine art, I really, really love it. So I'm hoping that that's what I can continue to do. You honestly don't know how long you have, and so you better make every day count, is what I figure. And I was thinking to myself, why in the world am I doing this at the age I am? I'm 64 years old. I'm just starting out in the business where some other people are winding down. And I'm just now starting it, and I'm just so excited about it. And I thought, how long can you really do this? What, if you're lucky, you've got 10 good years left. And that's not true. I'll just have to change how I'm doing it. If If I can't get on the ground anymore to take those shots, then I won't take those shots. I'll either figure out a different way or I'll figure out different shots to take.
Suzanne's an artist.
Yes.
She really, and you can tell throughout all of what she's done, both as an actress, as a singer, as an organizer and of putting together events. She has really, all throughout these things, carried those artistic talents. And when you meet her, you can tell that this is a woman who just oozes art.
And even in her photographic images, there's this artistic flair to her work, which is really captivating.
Yeah, and it's not artistic in the sense where she's changed the images and done multiple overlays. It's not in that sense. What's artistic is the sense of how people are placed or how she's captured their expressions, and somehow or other she succeeds in capturing these gorgeous faces. Gorgeous in the sense that they're illuminating and their eyes are illuminating, and you could just tell that they want to tell you the rest of their story. They're shining. I just wanted to hop into one of those pictures and be a part of it. They were really, really fun.
Yeah, definitely looks like fun.
Me and my boy Matt had it good. He had catnip that was off the hook. But one day, he brings a girl home, and she's allergic to cats. Every sneeze was a nail in my coffin. Now I'm in a shelter. It's decent, but they don't even have Wi-Fi.
My career was basically in the airline industry. I spent 44 years in the airline business, primarily in labor and employee relations. I spent 24 years with Trans World Airlines in Chicago, Kansas City, New York, St. Louis, and then I went to work for American Airlines in 1991 in Dallas, Fort Worth. Well, I've been a photographer since I was about 10 years old. I had my first Brownie camera then, and I just have been interested. It's been a lifelong interest for me. During the period of time when I was working and engaged in my career, that was pretty much confined to vacations and snapshots and family events and that kind of thing. When I retired in 2012, I set a goal to really spend more time in developing my craft in photography. I don't really specialize currently. Over the course of time, most of my photography has been landscape and wildlife. I'm now getting into more portraiture and headshots and that kind of thing. And I just about 6 months ago created a studio in the second bedroom of my home, so I have the ability to do some headshots in there. I think the challenges that I faced is that there are so many different technical things that you need to know and you need to get command of. And lighting is a big deal, and so that's one of the challenges that I face is trying to master lighting and get it to a place where I could take a picture that wasn't just a snapshot. I would advise them to concentrate on the skill, not necessarily on the tools. Photographers have a tendency to be very interested in the latest and greatest gear of whatever type it is, lights or cameras or lenses and so forth and so on. But the art of photography is really more about your vision and what you do with the light, the way you manage the light. And so it doesn't take the latest gear, although my wife would tell you that I have it and I've spent a lot of money on it. But I would just say to focus on learning the craft. I would like to have a body of work that is recognized in some fashion or another, be it published or a book or something recognized in some way. Have a gallery showing or something along those lines.
Mark has some lovely travel photography,
Yes, he does.
and you can tell that he has really appreciated the various cultures and places and scenes that he's had an opportunity to see, and shares them very well. The stories of what's happened in those places and what his experience was in those places. So they're good images and interesting images.
They are interesting, and his landscapes are just beautiful. I really like those.
You think getting dumped by text is harsh? Try getting dumped by a tennis ball. My ex-owner drove me out to the woods, yelled fetch, and by the time I brought the ball back, he was gone. Yeah, I was pissed. But the folks at the shelter helped me let go of my anger. I learned coping skills, like taking it to the hole. Boom! Now I'm ready to fetch again. But how about I throw and you run and get it?
Well, I'm a retired teacher. I taught primarily middle school music for my entire career. I taught a little of everything, a band, chorus, general music, and some humanities classes. And in the last couple of years, they actually asked me to teach some photography classes to middle school students. I've been interested in photography pretty much my whole life. I got seriously interested in college. I had a cousin who was the consummate geek, and I dragged him to the big city and to a camera store, and he helped me pick out my first SLR film camera, which I still have. And I did a lot of experimenting then, and did photography recreationally pretty much my entire life. My family owned a newspaper business in a small town, and so I kind of grew up in that environment, and my cousin who helped me was always messing around the darkroom, so I got really interested that way too. Well, about 10 years ago, somebody invited me to participate in an online photo contest, and that kind of got the ball rolling. And then I got involved with an art gallery in my town, and they encouraged me and they showed some of my work. And I got involved with some local photography clubs, and lots of people there were professional photographers and mentors, and that just kind of got the ball rolling, and I just kept going from there. And I decided at some point that I think this is going to be a business for me after retirement. And I established it as a business 2 years before I retired. And then when I retired, I rented a small studio space near my home, and that's where I am now and what I'm doing. I think I have the same challenge that many people do, and that is there's a lot of competition. It's hard to market yourself. It's hard to get the word out about the work that you do and get people in the door. That's been my main thing. And a lot of times people don't value what you're doing and don't want to pay the amount that you feel like you deserve and that you're worth. And that's basically, I think, the biggest challenge I have is marketing myself and getting people through the door. I'll tell you, when I retired from teaching and went from working for somebody else to working for myself, it made a world of difference. It's not easy because you're responsible for yourself, but then again, you don't have anyone to blame but yourself if things go wrong, but you don't have anyone to pat on the back but yourself when things go right. And I really enjoy it. I do a lot of headshots, and I enjoy that one-to-one with the people that come in. They're usually professional people, so I kind of click with them. And then I have 5 dogs, and I love to photograph them, so I started working on the idea of pet photography, and I'm trying to build up that part of my business too, because I love the dogs. And I've photographed some other animals too, but primarily it has been dogs, yeah. I've gotten involved with print competition in the last few years, and I have been really fortunate to have gotten some merited images, and I've had 3 images that made the loan book and 1 that made the showcase book. And print competition has, I can't tell you how much it's improved my photography, because you really start examining closely what you're doing and your technique, and you start pushing yourself to be better and better through that. Was actually a picture of 3 orchids that I photographed here at the Opryland Hotel, at my very first imaging. The other one was a really fluke sort of thing that happened. We had a flyover in downtown Cincinnati of the Blue Angels, and I found out about it from a friend about 10 minutes before it happened. And I grabbed a camera and the longest lens I had, and I was going to go to a certain place, and I didn't have time, so I stopped at a place about a block from my house, and it was a railroad overpass, and I stood there, and lo and behold, the planes flew right over this church in my town. And so I got this picture of these blue angels zooming over in the background of the church steeple. And it's titled Soaring Spirits. And I thought, it's 2 types of spirits there. You know, you have the church steeple, and then you have the soaring spirits in the airplane. I would like my legacy to be that I am recognizable as an artist. I have a friend who is a painter, and she purchased one of my photographs that was on canvas at a show at my church. We have an art gallery there with rotating exhibits. And she said, and now I've got a Connie Sanders to hang on my wall. And that was very flattering to me, and I think that if I have a recognizable style like that someone wants a Connie Sanders or Constance Sanders, for my formal name, hanging on their wall, I think that would be a great legacy knowing that.
And she's really good with the pets, the animals.
So, while I like her animals a lot, I think some of the pictures that really interested me the most were the ones of people in kind of unusual settings for portraits. For instance, the one that really struck me was a black and white picture she'd done that's called the Ecclesiastical Scholar. The light is coming in from, must have been some open window area in what looks like an old abbey or an old monastery, and it comes in and just glances off one side of his face. He's got kind of an ethereal look. He's standing holding a book tenderly as if it was a very special, important book for him. Was this a Bible? You can't tell. But it really was an interesting way of capturing this man in his environment. She in fact won a Fuji Award for this picture, and I certainly could see why.
Yes. Now my favorite is Casablanca Canine. That dog really looks like he has attitude in that photograph. Now I really like that picture. It just really brings a smile to my face.